"Easy there," Emily Carter whispered, raising both hands as the enormous white wolf pinned her with a pair of brilliant silver eyes. "I'm trying to help you, not embarrass you." The late afternoon sun filtered through the towering pines of Black Pine Forest, turning drifting dust into ribbons of gold, while a cool breeze carried the scent of cedar, damp earth, and wildflowers. Most people in Ashbrook Village believed the northern woods belonged to spirits, and no sensible person wandered beyond the old stone marker after noon. Emily had heard those warnings since childhood, but gathering medicinal herbs was how she supported herself after her grandmother's passing, and fear had never filled an empty pantry. She carefully tucked another bundle of yarrow into her canvas satchel before freezing at the sound of a low, frustrated growl echoing somewhere beyond a cluster of thick berry bushes. It wasn't the roar of a predator hunting prey. It sounded annoyed. Curious despite every instinct urging caution, Emily stepped quietly through the brush until she spotted the largest wolf she had ever seen. He was magnificent, his snow-white coat glowing beneath scattered sunlight, his broad shoulders nearly reaching her chest even while crouched awkwardly behind a fallen log. Yet there was something strangely undignified about the situation. The majestic creature kept twisting his body in impossible directions, letting out irritated huffs every few seconds as if trying to reach something he simply couldn't. Emily bit her lip to keep from smiling. "You look like you're losing an argument with nature," she murmured. The wolf instantly stopped moving. His ears lifted. Slowly, almost reluctantly, he turned his head toward her. His silver eyes narrowed with unmistakable intelligence. Instead of charging, he remained perfectly still, watching her with the exhausted expression of someone whose pride had already suffered enough for one day. Emily noticed him shifting his weight again before finally spotting the problem. A long thorn branch had snapped beneath him, and one stubborn thorn had lodged itself where no proud creature would ever want assistance. Understanding immediately softened her expression. "Oh," she said quietly, "that's unfortunate." The wolf closed his eyes for a brief second, as though silently wishing the forest itself would swallow him whole. Emily knelt several feet away, deliberately giving him space. "I promise I'm not laughing," she said gently. "Pain is still pain." For several long moments neither of them moved. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Then, to Emily's surprise, the great wolf slowly lowered his head and remained perfectly still, offering the smallest gesture of trust. She took a careful step forward, her heartbeat quickening, unaware that before sunset the strangest favor she had ever offered would become a secret the most powerful man in the kingdom would desperately try to hide. Emily moved slowly, speaking in the same calm voice she had once used to comfort frightened horses during summer storms. The wolf never looked away from her face, his sharp silver eyes studying every breath she took, every careful movement of her hands. Whatever he was deciding, she knew one wrong motion would end the fragile trust that had somehow appeared between them. She stopped less than 3 feet away and crouched until she was almost level with him. "This is probably the most awkward favor anyone has ever asked of me," she said with a nervous smile. "But I suppose nobody plans for days like this." The great wolf let out a quiet sigh that sounded remarkably close to reluctant agreement. Emily carefully examined the thorn without touching it. It had caught beneath a patch of thick white fur after snapping from a wild blackberry bush. The branch itself had broken away, leaving only the stubborn thorn lodged in place. "Well," she whispered, "at least it is only one." She slowly reached into her satchel and removed a clean linen cloth. "I am going to help. If you change your mind, just step away." Instead of moving, the wolf shifted slightly, making the thorn easier to reach. Emily blinked. "You actually understood that, did not you?" The enormous animal merely looked toward the clouds as if pretending he had heard nothing. A tiny laugh escaped before she could stop it. "All right then. We are both pretending this. Conversation is completely normal." With steady fingers, she gently separated the thick fur surrounding the thorn. The wolf's muscles immediately became rigid, but he never growled. Emily paused. Almost there. She wrapped the linen around the exposed tip, took a careful breath, and with one smooth motion eased the thorn free. For one heartbeat the forest became perfectly silent. Then the wolf exhaled so deeply that leaves scattered across the forest floor. Emily held up the inch-long thorn in triumph. "There you are. She tossed it aside and lightly brushed away the remaining bits of bark caught in his fur. "You should be much more comfortable now." The wolf slowly stood to his full height, stretching each leg with unmistakable relief. His powerful shoulders rolled once before he cautiously took several steps. No hesitación. No awkward movement. Whatever discomfort had troubled him had completely disappeared. Emily folded her arms with quiet satisfaction. "See? Sometimes the smallest problems become the biggest nuisance." The wolf turned back toward her. For the first time his expression softened. There was still undeniable dignity in his posture, but something warmer now rested behind those remarkable silver eyes. It almost looked like gratitude. Emily smiled. "You are welcome." The breeze shifted, carrying the scent of pine through the clearing. Suddenly the wolf lowered his head in a gesture that looked strangely respectful before disappearing into the trees with astonishing speed. Within seconds only gently swaying branches remained. Emily stared after him, shaking her head in disbelief. "Well," she murmured as she adjusted her satchel over her shoulder, "I hope your pride recovers as quickly as everything else." She had no way of knowing that several miles away, inside a secluded mountain castle hidden beyond the northern cliffs, the most powerful man in the kingdom would soon arrive wearing an expression that caused every royal servant to exchange confused glances. For the first time in nearly a week, the mysterious ache that had quietly followed him everywhere had completely vanished, and there was only one witness who knew exactly why. Alexander. Blackwood crossed the final stone bridge to Blackthorn Citadel, just as the first evening lanterns flickered to life along the castle walls. The guards stationed at the massive iron gates straightened immediately, each lowering a fist over his heart in silent respect. Their king acknowledged no one. His attention remained fixed on one impossible realization. The persistent discomfort that had shadowed every movement for days had vanished so completely that it almost felt unreal. He climbed the broad staircase with measured confidence, refusing to let the satisfaction show on his face. Inside the grand entrance hall, polished marble reflected the warm glow of crystal chandeliers, while servants hurried quietly between towering columns. Every person who caught sight of Alexander paused. Something was different. The Alpha King usually carried himself with effortless composure, but today there was an unusual lightness in his stride. His longtime steward, Edwin Mercer, approached with a respectful bow. "Your Majesty, welcome home. Shall I summon the royal physician?" Alexander stopped walking. "Why?" Edwin blinked. "Because Your Majesty requested him every evening this week." Alexander considered the question for only a moment before replying with complete confidence. "Cancel the appointment." Edwin looked genuinely puzzled. "Has the condition improved?" "Entirely." "Remarkable." The older man smiled with visible relief. "May I ask what treatment finally worked?" Alexander resumed walking without slowing. "Fresh air." Edwin quietly repeated the answer under his breath as though attempting to understand it. Fresh air had never appeared in any medical journal he had ever read. Meanwhile, several younger servants exchanged curious glances but wisely kept their questions to themselves. Alexander entered his private study overlooking the northern cliffs. Moonlight spilled across shelves filled with ancient maps and leather-bound books while a small fire crackled gently inside the stone fireplace. Normally this room brought him peace. Tonight, however, one unexpected memory refused to leave. Bright green eyes. A quiet laugh. A gentle voice saying, "Pain is still pain." He closed his eyes for a brief moment before immediately opening them again. No, he was not going to think about that afternoon. It had been an unfortunate accident witnessed by exactly one human being who fortunately knew nothing about his identity. The matter was closed forever. A knock interrupted his thoughts. "Enter." His captain of the Royal Guard, Nathan Cross, stepped inside carrying several reports. "Your Majesty, tomorrow's council meeting begins at 9 o'clock. The northern ambassadors have also requested an audience." Alexander nodded absent-mindedly. Nathan hesitated before adding, "Forgive the question, but you appear to be in considerably better spirits than when you departed this morning." Alexander accepted the papers without looking up. The problem resolved itself. Nathan smiled. "Excellent. May I note the cause in the official health records?" Alexander answered so quickly that even he surprised himself. "Bushes." Silence settled over the room. Nathan stared. "Your Majesty?" Alexander calmly lifted one document as though nothing unusual had been said. "Bushes." The captain waited several long seconds, expecting further explanation. None came. Finally he cleared his throat. "Very well. I shall omit that detail." After Nathan departed, Alexander slowly leaned back in his chair and covered his face with one hand. Somewhere deep within Black Pine Forest lived one herbalist who would probably never know she had unknowingly rescued the Alpha King from the single most embarrassing inconvenience of his entire reign. And Alexander intended with every ounce of royal determination to make certain no one ever learned the complete truth. The next morning dawned clear and cool, with golden sunlight spilling across the rooftops of Ashbrook Village as merchants arranged baskets of apples, fresh bread, and jars of wildflower honey along the town square. Emily Carter had already finished delivering bundles of dried herbs to the village apothecary when she noticed something unusual. People were whispering far more than usual, and every conversation seemed to stop whenever someone new walked past. Curious, she approached the bakery where Mrs. Eleanor Brooks was, placing warm loaves onto wooden shelves. "Good morning," Emily said with an easy smile. "Has something happened?" Eleanor glanced around before lowering her voice. "Royal riders came through before sunrise." Emily blinked. "The palace." "They spoke with the mayor for nearly an hour." Eleanor leaned closer. "Nobody knows why." Emily simply nodded, accepting a loaf wrapped in brown paper before continuing toward the village well. She had barely taken a dozen steps when two young lumbermen began talking nearby. "They say the Alpha King has ordered an investigation." "About what?" "No idea." "Some strange event inside Black Pine Forest." Emily slowed without meaning to. "Forest? Investigation?" The words settled quietly in her thoughts, though she quickly dismissed them. Black Pine was enormous. Hundreds of travelers passed through its outer trails every month. Surely whatever concerned the royal court had nothing to do with one herbalist helping an injured wolf. By noon, however, the rumors had grown even stranger. One traveler claimed royal scouts were searching for someone. Another insisted they were tracking an unusually large white wolf seen near the northern ridge. A third confidently declared the Alpha King himself had defeated some mysterious danger hidden deep within the forest. Emily nearly laughed at the dramatic storytelling. "Every tale becomes bigger after lunch," she muttered while arranging lavender bundles outside her cottage. Just then her elderly neighbor, Mr. Walter Hayes, wandered over carrying a weathered walking stick. "Emily," he said kindly, "were you gathering herbs yesterday?" "I was." "Near the old blackberry grove?" She looked up in surprise. "Yes." "Why?" Walter rubbed his gray beard thoughtfully. "Royal foresters found broken branches there this morning. They asked whether anyone had been nearby." Emily felt a small flutter of uncertainty. "Did you tell them?" "Only that you often collect herbs in that part of the woods." He smiled reassuringly. "Nothing to worry about, I am sure." Emily smiled back, although something inside her no longer felt quite so certain. Hundreds of miles away, inside the council chamber of Blackthorn Citadel, Alexander sat through reports concerning harvests, trade routes, and border agreements. He heard almost none of them. His attention drifted instead toward a simple memory of bright green eyes filled not with fear or admiration, but ordinary kindness. Finally, one council member mentioned reports from Black Pine Forest. Alexander looked up instantly. "What reports?" The advisor answered. "Our scouts discovered signs that someone had recently entered the restricted northern grove." Alexander's expression remained perfectly calm. "Continue." "Footprints indicate a single villager, most likely an herbalist." The room fell silent as every council member waited for the king's decision. Alexander rested one hand thoughtfully against the carved arm of his chair. He could simply dismiss the matter. He should dismiss the matter. Instead, to his own surprise, he quietly said, "Find the herbalist. Bring no accusations. I only wish to ask a few questions." Across the kingdom, Emily looked toward the distant tree line where the afternoon breeze gently stirred the pine branches, completely unaware that the quiet life she treasured had just become the subject of the Alpha King's personal attention. 3 days passed before the royal carriage finally rolled into Ashbrook Village beneath a cloudless autumn sky. Children abandoned their games, merchants stepped away from their stalls, and every conversation dissolved into astonished silence as 4 riders wearing the silver crest of Blackthorn Citadel entered the town square. Emily was arranging bundles of fresh rosemary outside her cottage when the horses came to a graceful stop. The captain dismounted first and removed one leather glove before offering a respectful nod. "Miss Emily Carter?" Emily straightened slowly. "Yes." "His Majesty, King Alexander Blackwood, requests your presence at Blackthorn Citadel." The square became so quiet that the distant chirping of sparrows sounded unusually loud. Emily looked around, expecting someone else to step forward. "I believe there has been a mistake." "There has not." The captain extended an elegant envelope sealed with black wax bearing the royal crest. "This invitation was written by the king's own command." Emily carefully accepted the letter and broke the seal. The message was surprisingly brief. "Miss Emily Carter, your knowledge of Black Pine Forest may assist the Crown regarding a recent matter of interest. Your presence is respectfully requested. Transportation and accommodations have been arranged. Alexander Blackwood." Emily read the note twice before quietly folding it closed. Nothing about the letter sounded threatening, yet one sentence echoed inside her thoughts. A recent matter of interest. She immediately remembered a proud white wolf staring at her with embarrassed silver eyes. No, she told herself. That could not possibly be connected. By sunrise the following morning, Emily found herself riding through mountain roads she had only heard about in old village stories. Towering evergreens lined the winding path while waterfalls spilled over gray cliffs that glowed beneath the morning light. Blackthorn Citadel gradually appeared above the clouds, its stone towers rising from the mountainside with quiet majesty rather than intimidation. It looked less like a fortress built for war, and more like a place where history patiently waited. Upon arrival, palace attendants greeted her with genuine courtesy instead of distant formality. A cheerful housekeeper named Margaret escorted Emily through polished hallways decorated with tapestries, crystal lanterns, and carved wooden wolves that seemed almost alive in the shifting sunlight. "His Majesty requested that you feel completely at ease," Margaret explained kindly. "You will meet him after the afternoon council concludes." Emily nodded, though her curiosity only deepened. Why would the Alpha King personally summon an herbalist from a small village? Across the palace, Alexander stood near the tall windows of the council chamber pretending to listen while advisors debated trade agreements. Nathan Cross quietly approached. "Your Majesty, Miss Carter has arrived." Alexander did not answer immediately. Instead he watched distant clouds drifting beyond the mountains. "Is she comfortable?" "Yes, Your Majesty." "Has anyone questioned her?" "No." Alexander finally turned toward his captain. "Good." Nathan hesitated before speaking again. "Forgive me, but this seems unusually personal." Alexander almost smiled before quickly suppressing it. Some debts deserve to be acknowledged properly. Less than an hour later, a palace servant arrived outside the guest room carrying a simple message. "Miss Carter, His Majesty will receive you in the royal garden." Emily followed the winding stone path through blooming white roses and quiet fountains until she reached an ancient oak overlooking the valley below. A tall man dressed in a dark blue coat stood with his back toward her, one hand resting lightly upon the carved stone railing. The moment he turned around, Emily froze. She had never seen the Alpha King before, yet there was something impossible to ignore. Those calm silver eyes looked exactly like the eyes of the remarkable white wolf she had met in Black Pine Forest. Emily could not explain why her heart recognized those silver eyes before her mind did. They were calm now instead of guarded, thoughtful instead of embarrassed, yet they were unmistakably the same eyes that had watched her with silent trust beneath the pine trees. Alexander inclined his head with quiet dignity. "Miss Carter, thank you for accepting my invitation." Emily returned a polite curtsy. "Your Majesty." For a brief moment neither of them spoke. The gentle splash of a nearby fountain and the distant songs of mountain birds filled the silence. Alexander had prepared formal words during the entire morning, but none of them seemed appropriate anymore. Finally he said, "Please walk with me." They followed a stone path winding through rows of white roses and neatly trimmed hedges. Emily noticed how every palace servant they passed greeted the king with sincere respect rather than fear. It matched neither the frightening stories whispered in distant villages, nor the proud wolf she had met in the forest. "You were collecting herbs in Black Pine several days ago," Alexander began carefully. "Yes, Your Majesty. Did anything unusual happen?" Emily glanced at him with innocent confusion before smiling slightly. "That depends on what you consider unusual." Alexander felt a faint sense of dread. "Please elaborate." "I met a very large white wolf." Alexander nodded once without changing expression. "I see." He seemed. Emily searched for the right word. "Remarkably stubborn." Alexander looked straight ahead. Wolves often are. He also looked rather uncomfortable. "That can happen." Emily smiled again, trying not to laugh at the memory. "I helped remove a thorn." Alexander cleared his throat almost imperceptibly. "A commendable act." Emily looked at him curiously. "You are taking this story much more seriously than I expected. It deserves serious consideration." Before Emily could ask another question, Nathan Cross approached across the garden carrying several official documents. "Your Majesty," he said respectfully, "the Council wishes to finalize yesterday's report regarding the incident in Black Pine Forest." Alexander accepted the papers with complete composure. Nathan continued, "Several advisors are still asking what caused Your Majesty's temporary inconvenience." Emily politely looked away, assuming the matter was confidential. Alexander calmly turned one page before answering in the same steady voice he used during state affairs. "Bushes." Nathan blinked. "Your Majesty? Dense bushes." "I understand there were bushes, sir, but what specifically happened?" Alexander folded the report without the slightest change in expression. "The bushes were unexpectedly persistent." Nathan stared in complete silence. Emily lowered her eyes toward the roses, desperately trying not to smile. Nathan slowly nodded, though he clearly understood nothing. "Very well, Your Majesty. I shall update the report accordingly." After the captain departed, another long silence settled over the garden. Emily finally spoke without looking up. "The bushes must have been very determined." Alexander stopped walking. He turned toward her with the composed expression of a king attempting to preserve every remaining fragment of his dignity. Emily looked up, and the moment their eyes met, neither of them could maintain complete seriousness any longer. A quiet laugh escaped her before she quickly covered her mouth. Alexander sighed with theatrical resignation. "Miss Carter, I am sorry, Your Majesty." "Are you?" She honestly considered the question. "Only a little." To Alexander's surprise, the corners of his own mouth lifted into the smallest smile. It lasted only a heartbeat, but it was enough for Emily to realize that behind the reserved Alpha King stood the same proud creature who had trusted a stranger with his most embarrassing moment, and somehow that impossible secret now belonged to only the two of them. The following morning the palace settled into its familiar rhythm, with advisors crossing marble corridors, servants carrying polished silver trays, and royal messengers hurrying between offices with carefully sealed letters. Emily expected to return home after breakfast, convinced the mysterious invitation had served whatever purpose the Alpha King intended. Instead, Margaret appeared outside her guest room carrying a simple cream-colored envelope. "His Majesty requests that you join him for the morning council," she said with an encouraging smile. Emily nearly dropped the cup of tea in her hands. "The council?" Margaret nodded. "His Majesty specifically asked that you sit as an honored guest." Emily had never imagined stepping inside the kingdom's highest chamber, much less being invited there. Less than an hour later she quietly entered the magnificent council hall, where sunlight streamed through towering stained glass windows depicting generations of Alpha rulers. Long oak tables surrounded the circular chamber, already occupied by ministers, generals, scholars, and judges. Every conversation paused the instant Emily appeared. Curious eyes followed the young herbalist as she took the modest chair prepared beside the king's seat. Alexander acknowledged her arrival with a polite nod before turning his attention back to the discussion. Trade routes, harvest forecasts, and winter preparations filled the morning agenda, until an elderly forester requested permission to present the final report concerning Black Pine Forest. "Proceed," Alexander replied calmly. The forester stepped forward carrying a polished wooden case. Your Majesty, our survey team completed its inspection of the northern grove. He opened the case and carefully removed several items collected from the clearing. Broken blackberry branches, a folded strip of clean linen. Then, resting upon a small velvet cloth, lay a single long thorn. Emily immediately recognized it. Her eyes widened before she could stop herself. Alexander noticed the reaction at exactly the same moment. Several council members leaned forward with interest. The forester continued, "We believe this thorn caused the unusual disturbance reported earlier this week." One advisor frowned. "A thorn?" "Yes, my lord." Another minister looked toward the king with obvious confusion. Surely there must be more to this matter. Before Alexander could answer, Emily quietly spoke without thinking. "It was that one." Silence instantly filled the chamber. Every face slowly turned toward her. Emily realized too late what she had admitted. She looked from the thorn to Alexander, whose composed expression remained perfectly still despite the unmistakable amusement hiding behind his silver eyes. One council member blinked in surprise. "Miss Carter, you recognize the object?" Emily hesitated before answering honestly. "Yes." "How?" She looked toward Alexander, silently asking whether she should continue. The Alpha King closed his eyes for one brief second, accepting that fate had finally decided for him. When he opened them again, he addressed the entire council in the same calm voice he used for royal decrees. "Because Miss Carter removed it." A wave of puzzled murmurs swept through the chamber. The elderly forester frowned. "Removed it? From where, Your Majesty?" Alexander remained silent for several long seconds. Emily lowered her gaze toward the polished floor, fighting another smile. Finally, the king answered with complete dignity. "From a place that I would prefer not to describe in an official government record." The room became astonishingly quiet before several older advisors exchanged restrained smiles. Nathan Cross quietly looked toward the ceiling as though studying the architecture with sudden fascination. Even the stern Chief Justice struggled to maintain a perfectly serious expression. Alexander gently picked up the thorn from the velvet cloth before placing it back inside the wooden case. "Let today's record show only this," he said firmly. Miss Emily Carter offered kindness without expecting reward, helped someone in genuine discomfort, and asked for nothing in return. Those are the only details history truly needs to remember. And for the first time since entering the palace, every person in the council chamber looked at Emily not as an ordinary village herbalist, but as someone the Alpha King himself had chosen to honor. When the council session concluded, no one hurried toward the exits as they usually did. Instead, ministers, scholars, and officers quietly gathered in small groups, each casting thoughtful glances toward Emily. Only hours earlier she had been an unfamiliar herbalist from a quiet mountain village. Now she had become the one person publicly acknowledged by the Alpha King himself for an act of simple compassion. Emily found the sudden attention overwhelming. She quietly stepped onto a shaded balcony overlooking the palace gardens, grateful for a moment of peace. The cool mountain breeze carried the scent of blooming jasmine, while distant bells echoed across the valley below. She rested both hands on the stone railing and smiled to herself. "Grandmother would never believe this," she whispered. A familiar voice answered behind her. "I suspect she would have believed it before you did." Emily turned to find Alexander approaching without guards or attendants. For the first time since they had met inside the palace, he looked less like a ruler addressing a subject and more like the thoughtful traveler she had unknowingly encountered beneath the pine trees. He stopped beside her, allowing a comfortable silence to settle between them. "I hope today's events were not too overwhelming," he said. Emily laughed softly. "I expected to return home after breakfast. Instead you attended the royal council. That was not exactly on my schedule." Alexander nodded with understanding. "Nor was explaining a thorn before my entire government." Emily pressed her lips together, trying not to laugh again. "You handled it with remarkable dignity." "Did I?" "Mostly." He looked toward the distant mountains. "I have negotiated peace treaties, settled border disputes, and spoken before thousands without hesitation." He paused before adding with perfect seriousness, "Oddly enough, this has been considerably more difficult." Emily finally laughed without trying to hide it. The warm sound drifted through the quiet garden, and Alexander realized it was the first completely unguarded laugh he had heard from her. He found himself smiling in return. At that very moment, Nathan Cross appeared at the entrance to the balcony, carrying another stack of official reports. He stopped respectfully several steps away. "Your Majesty, the Southern delegation has one final question regarding the forest report." Alexander sighed with theatrical patience. "Yes." Nathan glanced down at the parchment. "They have requested clarification concerning the source of the original complication." Emily lowered her head immediately, already knowing what was coming. Alexander accepted the report, read the question, and answered without the slightest change in expression. "Please inform them that the matter has been thoroughly resolved." Nathan waited. "And the cause?" Alexander folded the paper neatly before returning it. "Persistent shrubbery." Nathan blinked once. "Shrubbery, Your Majesty?" "Extremely determined shrubbery." The captain gave a slow nod that suggested he had finally accepted there were certain royal mysteries better left unexplained. "As you wish." After he departed, Emily could no longer contain her laughter. She covered her face with one hand while trying unsuccessfully to regain her composure. Alexander watched her with quiet amusement before shaking his head. "One day," he said, "my advisors will write books about my reign." Emily looked up with sparkling green eyes. "Do you think the bushes will receive their own chapter?" Alexander considered the question as though evaluating a matter of national importance. "Only if history insists on being unnecessarily detailed." Their shared laughter echoed gently across the palace gardens, and servants passing below exchanged surprised smiles. It was rare to hear the reserved Alpha King laugh at all, and rarer still to see someone standing beside him who treated him not as a distant legend, but simply as another person deserving kindness, understanding, and the freedom to smile at an unforgettable memory. That evening the palace stood beneath a sky painted with soft shades of violet and silver as the first stars appeared above the northern mountains. Emily prepared to leave at sunrise, her small travel bag resting neatly beside the guest room door. She had come expecting questions about a forest trail, and was leaving with memories she never could have imagined. A quiet knock interrupted her thoughts. When she opened the door, Alexander stood alone in the hallway, dressed not in ceremonial robes but in a simple dark coat that made him look less like a distant ruler and more like the traveler she had first unknowingly helped. "I hope I am not disturbing you," he said. Emily smiled warmly. "Not at all." He held a small wooden box carved with pine branches and placed it gently into her hands. Inside rested a polished silver brooch shaped like a single pine cone. Simple enough for everyday use yet crafted with extraordinary care. "This is beautiful," Emily whispered. Alexander nodded toward the window overlooking black pine forest in the distance. "It was made from wood gathered after one of the oldest storms our kingdom has ever recorded. My grandfather believed even the strongest trees became stronger after surviving difficult seasons." Emily carefully closed the box. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Alexander shook his head gently. "The gift is not for removing a thorn." Emily looked up with quiet surprise. He continued, "It is for walking toward someone in pain when every sensible person would have walked away." His voice remained calm, but every word carried unmistakable sincerity. "You never asked who I was. You never expected anything in return. You simply chose kindness." Emily lowered her eyes for a moment before answering. "My grandmother always said that helping someone should never depend on their title." A peaceful silence settled between them. Beyond the palace windows, the moon slowly climbed above the forest where their unusual story had quietly begun. Alexander finally smiled. "If you ever visit Black Pine again, I suspect the bushes have learned to behave." Emily laughed softly. "I certainly hope so." They walked together to the palace entrance where her carriage would depart at first light. Neither spoke of destiny, promises, or fate. None of those words seemed necessary. Some bonds were not created through grand ceremonies or dramatic declarations. Sometimes they began with an ordinary act of compassion offered without hesitation. As Emily's carriage disappeared down the winding mountain road the following morning, Alexander remained standing on the palace steps until it vanished beyond the pines. Somewhere ahead lay new seasons, unexpected reunions, and stories neither of them could yet imagine. But whenever the breeze stirred the branches of Black Pine Forest, both would remember the quiet afternoon when kindness proved stronger than pride. Laughter became the beginning of trust, and even the most embarrassing moment of a king became the memory that changed two lives forever.